I have gotten 17,000 views and thousands of comments. 99.9% has been positive. I keep getting asked this question. Glenn, what would you have done if you'd have been in a plane? I'm going to tell you. First off, when people call me, I don't care if it's 172. I had a very wealthy man in Memphis call me one time. I got a 172 down there at Olive Branch. I hadn't flown it in a couple of years, but I want you to sign me off so I can fly to Nashville this weekend. I went out there and looked at it. Full of walls, full of birds' nests. I shook it and water poured out of the back. When people call me, can you teach me in my 182 and my 172? Well, let me look at the plane. Who does the maintenance? When's the last time it had an annual? You got a medical? So, somebody that calls me, I want to go see the plane first. If they want me to teach them, do you have a medical? Have you even got a medical? I find out all that out. Now, when you start talking about jets and just people call you out of the blue, I got a Citation jet down there in Olive Branch. Can you fly me down to Florida this weekend? I'm sorry, but I'm just not available. Now, let's say that there was a rich guy that I flew for all the time in Statesville. I was his pilot. I'm the main one that flies that airplane. And he calls me on Wednesday. He says, look, I want to take 7 people down to Florida Saturday. I said, okay. I said, I'll let you know if anything changes. I'm going to go out there to that plane 3 days before. And I'm going to walk up to that plane, and I'm going to walk all the way around that plane twice. Is there any parts hanging off? Is there any fluid leaking? Is anything missing? Has the fuel boy backed into it and smashed the wing? I'm going to look at everything. Then I'm going to go to the back of the plane, and I'm going to plug up the battery. Anytime you get out of a jet, you unplug the battery in the back. I'm going to plug the battery up, then I'm going to go inside, and I'm going to turn the master switch on. Because if the battery, first off, if anything's leaking or broken on the outside, we ain't going. That's test number 1. Test number 2, I'm going to plug in the battery. If the battery's dead, we ain't going. We either got to charge that battery or get a new battery, and that's not cheap. Then I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to turn on the master switch. Do we have fuel? What's working and what's not working? If half the stuff ain't working, well, then we ain't going. That's going to have to get fixed. That's not something you do 15 minutes before you take off with all the people standing outside with the luggage waiting. That's something you do 3 days before. So that's what I would do. I would go out there 3 days before, and I would check out that plane. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, well, the plane has got 4 hours of fuel, and he wants to go from North Carolina down to Florida. I'm going to check the winds and the weather. It looks like we got a good tailwind, so we don't have to have as much fuel. But we're taking 7 people, but we got to have enough fuel to go to our destination and our alternate, because we don't know the exact weather right now because the day's Wednesday and we're going on Saturday. So that I'm gonna do some things beforehand before we even get to the flight. Now, the day of the flight, that flight doesn't, say you're going to leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 a.m. on Saturday. That flight doesn't begin at 8 a.m. That flight begins Friday at 8 a.m. Friday, I'm going to get some sleep. I'm going to get some rest. I'm going to eat good. I'm not going to fight with my wife. I'm not going to fight with my kids. I'm not going to worry about the IRS, the mortgage, or nothing. I'm going to have a peaceful day. I don't drink and I don't smoke. So you ain't got to worry about that with Glenn. So Friday night, I'm going to bed early. I'm getting up early, and I'm going to eat breakfast, and I'm going to go right back out there to that airplane. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to walk around it twice. Is anything broken? Is anything hanging off? Is there fluids leaking? Did the fuel boy back the fuel truck into the back of the plane? Happens all the time. Pilots take off. Why does my elevator not work? Well, they come back and land. They get the video out, and the fuel boy backed into the airplane. So I'm going to get out there an hour and a half, 2 hours before takeoff, which is 6 a.m. I'm going to be rested. I'm going to have a peaceful mind. I'm going to eat breakfast. I'm going to walk to that airplane and I'm going to circle it twice. Because if something's broke or leaking, we're not going. Now, if it passes that, I'm going to walk to the back and I'm going to plug up the battery. Then I'm going to go inside. Do we have enough fuel? Does everything work? Okay. Then I've already filed a flight plan. I've already done all that the day before. I'm going to check it one last time. So when I file the flight plan before, and I'm not doing this scripted, I do everything from the heart and honestly. I don't know if you can see this. That's Millington Airport. What happened to, let's see, Statesville. Statesville Regional. Now, there's Statesville Regional, and people said it didn't have an instrument approach. That's not true. Procedures, approach. It's got 4 instrument approaches. It's got 2 ILSs, 2 localizers. Well, actually, it's got more than 2. It's got 2 GPSs. You can do an approach there. So I know that if I take off and the weather's bad, I can return to this airport. I know the runway's long enough, the weather's long enough. How long is the runway? The runway's 7,000 foot. That's nothing for a citation jet. Okay, so before I take off, I'm going to check all that. I'm going to check the winds, the weather, the fuel. What's the weather at my destination? What are the winds on the way there? What's the best altitude to conserve fuel? When I get to that altitude, I'm going to look at the charts and the temperatures, and I'm going to bring the power back to the best power setting for that altitude and save fuel. You know, it might take 10 minutes longer. We may have a tailwind. We may save 30 minutes getting there. So that's the kind of things you got to think about. Now, the plane's okay, avionics okay, fuel's okay, the weather's okay. The weather taking off, let's say it's 800 overcast. 800 overcast that's pretty bad. But it's not undoable. You know, if it was 200 overcast, it's just not doable. Is it legal? Yeah. You can take off, and if you have to come back, you can. But, you know, it's what's legal is not always safe and smart. And what's smart and safe is not always legal. So if it's 1,000 foot, that's okay. So let's say everything looks good. I got a flight plan already planned. I'm going to call the controller on the telephone, and I'm going to say, this is citation 1234. I'm going to depart Statesville at 8 a.m., and I'm going to Gulf Shores, Alabama, 3 hours en route at 38,000 feet, 3.5 hours, 7 people on board. It's a white aircraft trimmed in blue. And he's going to save that. He's got that saved in the computer. He's going to say, okay, I got you this. If you're not off by 8:31, it's canceled. So I got a 30-minute window to take off. So, and he's going to say, when you take off, you fly heading 180, you climb to 10,000, and you call center 128.42. I said, okay, I read all that back. That way, when I get in the airplane and we get everybody in, we check everybody, everything's loaded. Now, I got a young man that wants to sit up front. Come sit up front. I would love for you to sit up front. I want to teach you. I want you to see how to fly an airplane and how all this works. And guess what? I'm an instructor, so I'm going to let you log it. You know, so I'm going to set him up front, but I'm going to say, look, I don't mind you sitting up front. But when I hold my hand up, you don't say nothing because I'm on the radio. Do not touch anything. Don't touch the yoke. Don't touch the pedals. You see them pedals? Don't touch nothing. Don't touch anything. The first time you touch something, you're going to have to go back in the back, okay? You cannot touch anything. I don't mind you asking questions. But when I do this right here, I have to talk on the radio, so I have to have silence. I've been at the airport before and see young kids pull up with their parents just watching the airplanes. And, you know, I talk to everybody. I go over and talk to them. I say, ma'am, I'm so-and-so. I'm an instructor. Let me take them up for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. And I pay for it, and I've taken numerous people I don't even know up flying for 10 or 15 minutes. So I don't mind having somebody sit up in the right seat. I don't mind it, but you're going to get the lecture. Don't touch anything. I don't mind you asking questions, but we're not going to discuss the politics of the moon because I'm busy working. If you got a quick question, do this. And if I say, okay, ask the question, then that's fine. Now, so we're going to get that straight before we take off. Now, we're going to get in the plane. We're going to taxi out. We're going to get on the runway. We're going to take off. We're going to hit, if it's 800 overcast and the elevation's 200, we're going to hit in the clouds at 1,000 foot. That airplane right there, you get past the 800 foot, autopilot on. Autopilot on. The autopilot's already on. So we're climbing. So we're in the airplane. We just took off. Young fella, how do you like everything so far? I like it. I'm going to get on the radio, and I'm going to call center, and I'm going to say, Center, citation 1234 off Statesville, vacating 2.5 to maintain 10, heading 180. He's going to call back and say, radar contact, climb and maintain flight level 380. And there I go. Now, I go through 3,000 foot. We've lost the engine. I'm not going to panic. We just lost the engine. So what am I going to do? I'm going to bring the power lever up a little bit on the good engine. If the engine running rough is still producing power, I'm not going to shut it down. I'm just going to bring it back a little bit. As long as it's not vibrating and going to fall off, I'm just going to bring the power back a little bit. Then I've already got the autopilot on. Anything that goes wrong on that airplane, by law, you have to call ATC and let them know. I'm going to call ATC and I'm going to say, ATC citation 1234, looks like we've probably lost the engine and we're going to have to declare an emergency. We want to go straight to Charlotte. We're going to level off it here at 3 and run our checklist. We have 7 people on board and 3,000 pounds of fuel. Now, when you say that, you got his attention. He's going to give you a dedicated channel and a dedicated controller. And they're going to clear the space out. You know, they're going to come back. Citation 1234, understand, 7 people on board, 3,000 pounds of fuel, and verify that you're a citation 550. Affirm. Now, if I don't have time to talk on the radio because I'm dealing with a problem in the plane, I'm going to deal with the problem in the plane. I'm not going to answer him and get in a big talking match with him. But this is not the end of the world. The wing didn't fall off. We got a rough running engine. So I'm going to say, yes, we would like to do a single engine approach straight in on the longest runway. And, you know, we're 6 minutes out. He's going to say, citation 12345, maintain 3,000, turn to 360. You're 30 miles from runway 36. I'm going to say 360, 30 miles, runway 36, and 3,000. Now, all that's going to happen quick. That's going to happen in 20 seconds. Now, once I get that straight, we're on autopilot. I've already pulled the power back. Get the checklist out. Single engine checklist, lost the engine. Okay? Number 1, do this. Number 2, do this. Number 3, do this. Number 4, do this. And we're going to run whatever the checklist says. Now, by this time, we're 20 miles out. We got the checklist done. We've got the power pulled back. If we got to shut down that engine, we're just going to shut it down. It ain't but 10 seconds to shut that sucker down. Shut it down. That plane will climb with 7 people and full of fuel. 800 foot a minute. But 800 foot a minute is better than nothing. But we're already at 3,000 foot. We don't need to climb. We're going to level off. We're going to take our time. We're going to burn some fuel. If everything's okay, if it was me, I want to land. I don't want to fly around and burn out fuel. You're going to burn a little bit of fuel going there. So We're at 3,000 foot. Now we're 10 miles from North Carolina. And the controller's going to come back and say, 1, 2, 3, 4, do you need equipment? I'm going to say, well, yeah, them guys ain't done nothing for 3 weeks. Let them come out there, but just tell them not to turn all their lights on because you scare the crap out of the passengers, because they're going to follow you down the runway. So we're going to be at 3,000 foot. I've done all the checklist, everything. Now, we're coming up 5 miles away. We're still at 3,000 foot. Now, I'm thinking I got to get slowed down. Now, the way to slow down is pull the power back a little more or move the flaps down. And you don't put the gear down until you get closer to the runway, usually at the outer marker. So we ain't going to add any drag on this plane. This is going to be a little different, and it's this way in the checklist. So we're going to do what the checklist says. We're going to be maybe 3 miles out. We're still at 3,000 foot. We're going to be a little bit high. We got a long runway. So we're shooting a single engine approach, and we don't want to have to go around. So we're going to do everything right and perfect. Now, we're going to put in the computer our speed, temperature, runway length, altitude, weight, amount of fuel, and people. And it's going to calculate that for you. Now, that plane might not have had that, and you might have to do that by hand. And if you do have to do it by hand, it's not the end of the world, but it's a little bit of work because you got to pull out them old charts, and you got to look on the charts and figure that stuff out. So that's going to give you the speed when you're landing. Now, if you got a co-pilot that can do all that for you, that's really good. And if you got a co-pilot that can talk on a radio and do all that, that's even better. And if you got a co-pilot that can look out the window when you're trying to land to see the lights and the runway and help you, that's a whole lot better. So by this time, we're a mile out. We're still 3,000 foot. We got a long runway. We're going to start down. We're not going to get so low that we have to go back up. Now, will that plane do a missed approach, single engine with all that? Yeah, but it ain't going to be great, and you don't want to have to do it. So now we're a mile from the runway. Let's move our flaps to take off and approach. Let's put our gear down. Now we're going to start slowing down. We might be doing 150. Now, our target speed from our calculations, 105, okay? So while we're coming down, the co-pilot's job is to look at the speed. Are we high, low? 100 foot high, VREF plus 10. VREF plus 10 means you're 10 knots fast. If he says VREF, you're right on speed. If he says VREF minus 10, then you're slow. And the last thing you want to do is get slow. Slow and low, look out below. So a co-pilot is great in this situation. Can this plane be flown single pilot? Yes. Safely? Yes. But so at this point, we're a mile out. We just put our gear down. We moved our flaps down to take off and approach. We are not going to put that flap to land till we know we got that runway. And me, I wouldn't put it down till we got 200 foot off the ground. Because if you have to go around, it will not go around unless you put the gear up and move that flap lever from land to take off and approach. If you're trying to fly around 700 foot and you got the gear down and the landing flap down, you're on one engine, you ain't going far, So that's what I would have done. I would have started this whole thing 3 days before. I go out there to that airplane 3 days before. Check the airplane, check the fuel, check the battery, check the avionics. Make sure the fuel boy didn't back his fuel truck into it. I go out there 3 days before. The day of the flight, I'm going to be there 2 hours before we take off. That way, if something's broke, I can call the owner and say, look, I hate to tell you this, but a cement truck ran into your airplane and we ain't going nowhere. That way they don't get all ready and come out there and they can make alternate plans. But I'm going to be out there 2 hours before. I'm going to go straight to that plane and circle it twice. Then I'm going to hook the battery up. Now, once I loaded the plane and got everybody in there, I'm going to circle the plane again. And I'm going to look at all of those baggage doors. They should be locked. If they're locked, the key lock is going to be like this. If they're like this, they're not locked. The key lock will be like this. And I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to hit it to make sure it doesn't pop open. I'm going to check every baggage door. Then, I'm going to look at everything else. But when you get in the plane and you shut that door and seal it, the lights go out. And that's the call for the guy shutting the door to the captain, lights out. Because when he shuts that door, that light on the dash goes out to let you know that door is shut and secure. If there's any baggage doors open, you're going to get a light. I mean, you're going to have a light on the dash telling you got a baggage door open. So I'm going to check for that too. Then once I get everybody seated in there, everybody's happy, we're going to take off. But the main thing, I don't care if it's VFR everywhere. I'm filing an instrument flight plan, and I'm going to have my route saved before I take off. Can you fly VFR in a jet from Statesville? I'm not saying he did that. From Statesville to Florida. Yeah, you can do it. People do it all day long. You can fly down there and never say a word on the radio. You can do it. People do it. I wouldn't do it. So that's what I would have done. I would have been on an instrument flight plan. I'd have hit that autopilot, even if it's clear weather at 1,000 foot. That way, if anything goes bad, you're already ahead of it. Now, when something does go bad, we're going to pull out the checklist and we're going to run the checklist. And we're going to be honest with the controller. At this point, I ain't worried about my license. I'm not worried about if the owner's mad. I don't care. I don't really care about the people in the back. I care about Glenn. As long as I'm safe, everybody else is safe. I've had a lot of people call me with raggedy 172 Cherokee 180s, and I go out there and look at it. I just tell them I'm not flying that plane. I'm sorry. I've probably turned down half of the flights I could have took. Especially teaching in these little raggedy airplanes. I could do a 5-hour video on raggedy airplanes with cheap owners. And I'm talking millionaires that have a raggedy airplane. How many pilots have you had? Well, I had 5 in the last 2 years. That's a big red flag right there. When you interview, you can interview an owner without letting him know that you're interviewing the owner, So, anyway, I meant to show you the avionics. This is the avionics for that plane. It's a Citation 2. And it's older avionics, but it's still good. It works. So, and I believe that plane has the original avionics. See, the thing about that plane, you can get those Citation 2s for $300,000, $600,000, $800,000 all day long. But they're not fuel efficient. The new CJ, it has a Rolls-Royce engine. That's the same engine that's in a cruise missile. And it's 1,500 less moving parts than the 500 models. The Bravo is a great plane. The 5 is a great plane. The 3, the 7 is a great plane. The Encore Plus is the better plane of all the Citation jets, But you can get those planes for $300,000, $500,000. If you take the engines off, the plane's not worth anything. It's worth maybe $10,000, $20,000 for parts. The only value in that plane is the engine. And the engines are not that valuable because they're old, they're not fuel efficient, they're loud, and they're a maintenance nightmare. The new engines on the CJs are very fuel efficient. You can get a used CJ for $1 million now. $1 million. But if you get a new CJ for used CJ for $1 million, you're going to save over 2 years in fuel several $100,000. If you get a $300,000 jet, 6 months out of the year, it's going to be in the shop. It's broke. We don't have parts. You're going to fly the ball somewhere. He's going to want to go back in 2 days, and you're going to have to call him and say, the plane's broke. Can you get a part? Nope. Now, most of these big airports, there are mechanics that work all night long. They're sitting there in their van. They got a hotline where a warehouse is full of parts. And if you land and your plane's broke, they'll work on it. But it's going to cost you big money. And when you wake up in the morning from your Hotel 6 and come out there, it's going to be ready to go. But you know what? You better have your credit card ready to go. They'll fix it. They love it. They make good money. So if you get one of them $300,000 planes, it's a great airplane. If you have a maintenance guy that's top notch at the airport where that plane lives, and every time it lands, he does progressive maintenance. He goes and looks at it, makes sure everything's ready. If you're keeping it at some podunk airport and it's broke, and you got to get somebody to come over and work on it and look at it, you're going to go broke. You know, when you pay that $300,000, $500,000, $600,000, that's just the beginning. Now, if you get a CJ jet, you can get the engines in the plane on a maintenance program. I don't care what plane you get. It's going to have, the maintenance is just unbelievable. So, most of these guys on the CJ jets, they got a maintenance program. Every hour they fly it, they send $300, $500, $600 per engine to Cessna at the end of the month. You know, if you fly 20 hours, that's $10,000, $10,000, $20,000. They send Cessna a check for $20,000. That way, if the engine breaks, they fix it. And when the engine goes out at 5,000 hours, you just put a new engine on. You know, that's called the Cessna plan. You think you paid $300,000, $500,000, and that's the end? That's the beginning. That's only the first payment. You're going to be paying a lot. Now, is the Citation II a good airplane? Yes. Is it a safe airplane? Yes. Is it a single pilot airplane flying safely? Yes. Yes. Now, you can take that plane and put different engines on it, and it'll be great. You can take that plane and redo all the avionics and fix it for a fraction than what you're going to spend, you know, on a brand new jet. Is it safe? Yes. Is it safe single pilot? Yes. You got to do the maintenance. You got to have a competent pilot, and you got to send him to training. Most insurance companies are going to require your pilot to go to a simulator school every year. Now, in the airlines, you got to go every 6 months. Captain goes every 6 months, and the FO goes every year. But if you own your plane and you want to skimp, and your insurance buddy is your buddy, oh, I got this guy. Oh, he's got 8 type ratings. So, you can't skimp on your pilot. You got to have a pilot that can go to flight safety. Send him to flight safety. He'll love it. I mean, pilots love that. He'll love it. He'll come out of there and be ready at flight safety. You're going to spend a week, typical airplane, on the books, book knowledge. Now, some of that is just fluffy stuff. Then you're going to spend a week in the simulator, and that you're going to do everything. Gear won't come up, gear won't go down, flaps won't come up, flaps won't come down, engine on fire, engine blew up, engine fell off, alternator won't work, air conditioner won't work, smoke in the cockpit, fire in the cockpit, fire on the engine while you're flying, fire on the engine and we're on the ground, alternator won't work. You're going to do every possible emergency possible. And like I said before, right now we're using 30% of our brain. When you get in an airplane, you're using 110% of your brain. What you remembered in that school, in an emergency, in an actual airplane, it's going to come right to you. It's going to come right to the front of your brain. So it's the most valuable thing with your airplane is a professional, highly trained pilot. Flight safety, SimCom, CAE, You know, flight safety is the best. They got full motion simulators. Flight safety can mimic a dime on the runway at Memphis. And you can feel it in their simulators. That's the best place to go. There's no better place to go to. If you can spend the money on a plane like that, you can spend the money to send your pilot to flight safety once a year. So if I'd have done that flight, that's what I'd have done. You know, I'm not going to run out there 20 minutes before the flight and be scrambling, trying to do the weight and the balance and how many people. Oh, you brought your golf clubs. Oh, you brought your dog and a carrier. Well, we got to recalculate everything. Well, the weather's bad. We need more weather. Well, we're going to have to leave some luggage, or one person's going to. I'm not going to have that. I'm going to have all that done before the owners and the passengers get there. You know, and I'm going to have as much done as I can. I'm going to get some sleep the night before. And, you know, if I got to go down there with the plane and stay there with the plane, it's going to be an understanding with the owner. I need a Hilton Garden Inn. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to go out to eat with y'all. I don't want to go golfing with y'all. I want to go to the room and rest and be ready for the flight home, you know. So there's more to it than running out there, jumping in the airplane and going. You know, the pilot has to do a lot of things. Now, if you're a commercial pilot for the airlines, this is what you do. You walk out there to work, they give you a packet with everything already done. You don't have to do anything. You get in the plane and you sign your name. You make the first officer do everything. And he likes it. He wants to do everything. When you're flying a little Citation 2, you do everything. You do the weather, flight planning, you load the baggage, you do everything. I mean, you make sure there's oil in the engine. When you land, you got to check the oil in the engine within 10 minutes after you land. You got to do that. You got to go to the back of the plane and undo the battery before you leave. If you leave a light on and you run that battery down and you get out there the next morning, the battery's dead. And you got to tell the owner, well, we got to buy a $5,000 battery because I didn't unplug the battery. He'll be looking for another job. So anyway, that's another rant. I'm sorry. Many people ask me, Glenn, how would you have handled the flight? How would you have handled the emergency? I'd have done what it said in the book. I'd have done what it said in the book. As soon as I lost the engine, autopilot on, declare an emergency, find the closest airport, shut the engine down, do the procedure, get as close as I can to that runway before I put the gear down and the flaps down, and land safely. Now, that's what I'd have done. And you know, I'm a safety fanatic. I'm walking around my house, make sure I don't hit the light, and make sure that's just me. I mean, I'm just a safety fanatic. So a lot of people ask me, how would you have done the flight? That's what I would for sure be on an IFR flight plan. You cannot take off in that plane and penetrate a cloud unless you're on an IFR flight plan, you're IFR current, and your airplane's IFR certified. You can't do it. You can't just go out there in that plane. You got to be 2,000 beside and 500 foot below a cloud. Some places you just have to be clear clouds. But when it's overcast and it's raining and drizzle, you can't just jump in the plane and take off and fly through that. You got to be on a flight plan. You got to have that done before you ever get in an airplane. Okay, that's the end of my rant. 99.9% of the people have been positive. I'm getting phone calls. You know, they're positive. I got 0.0001% that think I'm a crazy lunatic maniac, but that's okay, you know. I've had ice on the 172 and I've had ice on the jet. A little bit of ice ain't gonna bother me. Shoot, I'm 63 years old. So anyway, that's what I would have done. People ask me, that's what I would have done.